Good day, everyone. Eric from Helps Law Firm for Seniors and Disabled Persons talking to you today on September 8th, 2025. Glad to have you here. My name's Eric, attorney for, what, 46 years. Um, Helps is a national law firm. What we do is represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay in order to stop debt collector harassment. Also educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. And the way this works is if you have questions, you can put them in the chat feature, but I also have things that I've written down that I talk about. Okay, so don't be afraid to ask your questions. I'm glad to have you here. And I'm going to start out with someone I talked to earlier today. In fact, enrolled them in Helps. It was a nice lady from Michigan. Maybe she's listening. Um, Her age is 78. She had a home that was worth around $150,000. She didn't know what it was worth. So I looked it up on the internet. I typed in the address and came up with it. 3 or 4 websites that gave the value of the home. She owed about $50,000 on the home, so she had about $100,000 equity in the home. How did she find out about Help? So a friend had told her about us, and then she got on our website and also looked at some of our YouTube videos. And she had about at least $30,000 in debt, and including $10,000 debt to the credit union where she banked. And she had her car broken down recently, and she bought a new car or a newer car, and she owed a fair amount of money on it. The payment was a little bit over $350. She was a little concerned about the interest rate. It was like 13%, which is high. A 2019 car. And she had quite a bit of credit card debt, like I said, at least 30 or 40,000. She had signed up with a company called AmeriCorps, and she was making payments to them of at least $450 a month for several months. When she enrolled with AmeriCorps, they never told her that her Social Security and her pension was protected. Her Social Security and her pension, she made a little bit over $3,000. They never told her that, which isn't unusual. If you're signed up with a debt management company or a debt settlement company and making them a monthly payment, and you were never told that your income was protected and you're getting Social Security and a pension, you weren't given complete information. With rare exceptions, they won't tell a senior that. If they told you that, you would realize you didn't need their help. You wouldn't sign up with them, and they wouldn't make money off you. And a sizable percentage of their clients are seniors, and if they were to tell seniors the complete truth, their business would go down. And so they purposely withhold that information from seniors. Okay. She banked at a credit union, and she owed money to that credit union of about $10,000 on a credit card. So I explained what Helps does. How, if she enrolled in Helps, she would give us the creditors she owes money to, these credit cards. She could stop making the payments to them. They couldn't really do anything to her. If they sued her and got a judgment, they couldn't touch her Social Security. They couldn't touch her pension. Okay, they're not going to take her home. Every state has, virtually every state has what's called a homestead exemption. In Michigan, it's allowed for a senior, it's like $65,000. Well, she had a home that's worth 150. She owed about 50, and so 65 would make that she may have had a little bit of excess equity over the homestead exemption. However, it's not the practice of unsecured creditors, if they were to sue and get a judgment, to ever go after your home if you had equity over the homestead exemption. They shouldn't. They simply wouldn't do that. We talked to her about the possibility of her adding one of the kids onto the title of the home as a joint owner with survivorship rights, so that when she passed away, the property would go to her children. She may do that. It's up to her. I just gave her some information on that. She can look at that, make that decision. So what about the credit union that she owes money to? If you owe money to a credit union you're not going to pay, and you enroll in Helps, we're going to tell you to have your Social Security or your pension go to a different bank. Because whether you realize it or not, when you enrolled with that credit union and when you got that loan, you gave them authority to take money out of your account. Part of the fine print with the credit union tells them that they can deduct money out of your account to pay a debt that you owe them. So we told her, and she was going to enroll in Helps. We said, okay, you can stop paying the credit union, but you need to open up a bank account with a new bank or new credit union where you don't owe any money. and then she's going to give us the creditor she owes money to. We're going to send them a cease and desist letter. We're not going to send a letter to that credit union until after her money is going into that new bank account. Usually that can happen pretty quick. Um, and after we're done, I did talk to her. I mentioned the fact that she could look at possibly looking at a reverse mortgage. Um, she was worried about that, saying I was worried someone's going to take advantage of her. I told her that wouldn't be the case. The reverse mortgage market is really regulated. The fees are always the same. She may not qualify, but if she got a reverse mortgage, she wouldn't have to make the mortgage payment anymore. So she was going to look at that. Okay. And bottom line is we enrolled her helps, and she was really relieved when we were done talking to her. Okay. So if that's your situation, if you're struggling with debt and you can't afford to pay it, and you're getting Social Security or pension, and you can stop paying that debt. And when you enroll in helps, you give us the creditors you owe money to. We're going to send them a cease and desist letter, and they have to stop communication with you. A debt collector does. Okay. And you can always, look at our website, call us on the phone with questions, look at more of our YouTube videos to find out more about these laws and what they do. But we don't want you to worry. That's our number one thing. So Rick says, I'm apprehensive to include my one U.S. bank credit card debt of $14.92 because I bank with them. I'm afraid they will take money from my account. Well, if you like the U.S. bank credit card, and you can keep it, even if you don't pay it, the bank can't take money out of your account into which Social Security is deposited. Can't do that, and they won't. An exception would be a credit union, because the credit union, they kind of go to a different stationery store. They're different forms, and you gave them authority to take money out of your account, but you didn't do that with U.S. Bank. But the balance of $1,500, if that's small enough that you can afford it and you want to keep that a card, keep it, no problem. But if you couldn't afford that, for example, if it was 15,000 or 14,000 instead of 1,492, you obviously probably wouldn't want to keep that, and you could stop paying it, and you could still keep using U.S. Bank. Okay, but if it's 1492 and you want to keep paying, that's up to you. When we enroll people helps, one of the things we ask them: do you have a credit card with a small balance or nothing is owed that you still want to keep? And if the answer is yes, we tell people you can keep that card as long as it's not backed by a bank with you whom you have another card you're not going to pay. So a lot of people like to be able to keep a credit card, and I have no problem with that. That's your decision. Logically, it would make sense that that would be a smaller card with a smaller balance owed. Okay. So Tweety Bird says, I'm being sued again for the same debt over and over again by different debt buyers, attorneys, even those cease and desist letter income statements have been sent. I'm exhausted. They don't quit. I don't think you're being sued, Tweety Bird. I think maybe they've turned the collection over to someone different. Okay. And you're getting a new letter saying you owe this money. I don't see instances where a client that's been sued and there's a judgment where they get sued on the same debt over again. That would be highly unusual. I can't recall seeing that. This is one reason why our help is ongoing. See, when you enroll in helps, it's not just one. We're not just there for you for a month or two and then we're gone. We literally represent you forever. So that means if you ever get a new collection notice down the road, you can always get that to us, and we'll send a new cease and desist letter out to that debt collector. Okay? So you don't need to worry about it. Yeah, I don't want you to be stressed either. I realize that it's natural to be stressed, but I think after you've been watch enough of our videos and you understand what we do, you'll realize that you don't have to worry and you don't need to be stressed about this. But if you ever are stressed, you let us know. Okay? And you can always call and talk to us if you have questions. That's what we're here for. So here's one. Okay, this is kind of a little long email, but it says I bought a T2 T-Mobile smartphone several years back, and I had a hard time figuring out how to use it. My friend, an elderly caretaker, and I returned it to the store. But I didn't get a return receipt. And I was told a couple of weeks later they had not received it. Um, I canceled it, but they said they never received it. They referred us to a collection agency whose name I do not remember. I sent them a notice back telling them I did not owe the debt and why, and I told them to identify the original debtor. No response. Uh, More collection agencies followed up over the years. I told them the same thing. Finally, the last one, Transworld Systems, contacted me with a letter dated July 31st. I want to refuse to pay it because the phone was returned within the allowable window of time. I never maintained a service account with T-Mobile after any initial coverage. I've seen you on your YouTube videos and understand its message, but I want to know if you would send a letter to the collection agency in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania, explaining why they should remove their remarks from my credit record at the credit bureaus. I have a small state of Virginia retirement pension and Social Security. Please don't tell them this. Okay. Well, this person can enroll in helps and we'll contact whoever's bugging her and they'll stop bothering her. But the bottom line is you don't need to worry. And this is an example of why our help is ongoing. It's not just one time because creditors occasionally will send it to a new collection agency and you may get a new notice. But you don't need to worry if that happens. Can I send a cease and desist letter that you generated to that specific debtor? Well, sure, you can send it to, okay, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act applies to debt collectors, not original creditors, except in 7 states. So, if a cease and desist letter is sent to a debt collector, then under the law, they can no longer call or send you demand letters anymore. Now, they could still legally sue you. Doesn't matter if they do, but they could still sue you, but they have to stop contacting you. Okay? So this person contacts us and they say they're from Georgia. I'm 67 and retired and receive Social Security as my only income. I used to work part-time, but age creeps up with you. I have arthritis that makes it hard to work. And now a credit card has sent the papers by sheriff. I'm being sued. And I'm really stressed and don't know what to do. Any help would be good. I have to give an answer by September 20th, and should I? Thank you. Well, okay, so here's the facts. You're 67. Your only income is Social Security. And what you understand is that your Social Security is protected. Even if someone were to sue you and they get a judgment, they can't garnish your Social Security. And what about if it goes into your bank account? Well, a federal law went into effect in 2012 that tells banks that if they get a writ of garnishment on your bank account, they have to examine where the money came from. And if it came from a federal source like Social Security, they're supposed to take the amount you get each month times 2 and protect that sum from garnishment. So if this person in Georgia got $1,500 each month, times 2 would be $3,000, and his or her bank account would be protected from garnishment by her bank without her having to do anything. If she happened to have more in the account than that, it'd still be protected. The excess wouldn't be protected automatically. So they have to file some papers to get it released. A challenge to garnishment or claim an exemption form. But most people tell me they never have more than twice the amount of their Social Security in their bank account at any one time. So for that reason, we tell seniors, if you've been sued, you probably should just have one account, and that's the account to which your Social Security or your federal benefit is deposited. Now, what do I mean by federal benefit? Well, normally it's Social Security, but it could be a VA benefit. It could be a federal retirement, Office of Personnel Management if you were a federal worker, or if you worked for the post office, that's a federal pension, and the same with the railroad. It's a federal pension. And then it says, I have to give an answer by September 20th, and should I? Well, you could answer it if you want to contest the lawsuit, but if you owe the money, you don't need to contest it. You know, they'll simply get a judgment. They can't collect from you. Sometimes when you read the paperwork, it makes it seem like you have to file an answer or you have to contest it. But if you read it carefully, it says you only have to do that if you're going to fight the lawsuit or contest it. So no, you don't have to worry about September 20th. So what happens when one of our clients gets sued? If you're enrolled in HELPS or if you're going to enroll in HELPS and you've been sued, we ask that you send us the first 3 or 4 pages of the lawsuit. We name the name of the attorney that sued you, the case number, and the attorney's address. And usually that's on the first 2 to 3 to 4 pages. Okay? And then what we do is, first off, we contact you and explain to you why you're going to be okay, why you don't need to go to court, why you don't need to file an answer. We send you an email that has links to videos that talk about this and articles. And then what we're going to do is send a letter to the attorney who sued you. And the letter is going to tell the attorney that your income is protected. For example, it's Social Security, that you can't afford to pay the debt, not going to pay the debt, that we understand that they're going to get a judgment, remind them not to touch your bank account. We tell them that it doesn't matter because they can't anyway for the reasons that I explained earlier, how your bank account is automatically protected. But most of all, we're going to call you and tell you why you don't need to worry. You can always call and talk to us about that. Okay? So eventually they'll get a judgment, but that's going to be the end of it. But you can always call and go over this with us. We don't want you to win. Don't want you to worry about any of this stuff. Okay? So this person contacts us from New York. He says, I have no income right now except for Social Security and a pension. My house is in forbearance, which means that he's behind on his house payment. Either he's not making a payment or just making a small payment towards the house. He says, it has lots of equity. I'm listing it for sale. And apparently he owes some corporation debt. He has a personal guarantee for that debt. And apparently the corporation is no longer in existence. It's defunct. Oh, yeah. So technically, the law that we operate under, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, applies to um, consumer debt, but it doesn't apply to business debt. So technically, if you had a business and you owed the debt, um, a collector for a consumer debt could still contact you. You know, we still send cease and desist letters out to them, and they normally honor it and won't bother you, even though technically they could legally. Um, but what's important to remember that even if it's a business debt that you owe, that you guaranteed for your business that's now defunct or gone away, um, it doesn't really matter. What's important is that your income is protected. Your Social Security, your pension is protected from virtually any form of debt. Now, the only exception would be if you owed the IRS some taxes. The IRS could theoretically send you a letter saying they intend to offset 15% of your Social Security, but if your income's low enough, which is normally the case, you could apply for currently not collectible status and not have to pay that tax debt to the IRS. What about if you owe taxes to a state? Well, federal law protects your pension and your Social Security from a state tax collector. You don't have to pay it. Okay. So this guy from New York, we've talked to him, or we're going to talk to him, and we talked to him how to protect the money from the sale of his house. He hasn't been sued yet, and he owns the home with his wife. He just sells the home. They've been married for a long time. He just put the proceeds of the home in the wife's name. If he gets sued, it wouldn't be him and his wife. It'd be just him. So that's what we do. You know, our mission is to protect you from debt collectors, but we also educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. We want to give you the correct information. Eric, if Capital One bought Discover along with your debt that was on your Discover card, is Capital One a collector? Uh, no, because they're probably the creditor. Because Capital One and Discover have kind of joined together. They're the same company now. So it's not like Discover sold it to Capital One. That's the way I would think. It won't matter. Your income's protected. That's what's important. Yeah, Happy Girl says, so if I receive 1,000 in Social Security, my account is protected up to $2,000 per month. Yes, automatically by your bank in the event of a garnishment. Now, once again, if you had more than that in there and it came from Social Security, it's still protected. It could be just held up and you'd have to file some paperwork to get the excess released. But if you didn't want that to happen, just keep the balance in less than 2,000, less than twice the amount of your Social Security. But you don't even need to worry about that unless you were sued and someone was going or about ready to get a judgment against you. And then on top of that, they'd have to know where you bank. So I don't care how much you have in your bank account or how many bank accounts you have if you haven't been sued. But if you've been sued, you'd want to just have one account, and that's the account where Social Security goes. Okay, so this person calls it. They left a message regarding his mom. Hello, I'm reaching out on behalf of my mother. She fell and broke her hip and wrist outside of the parking lot of a hospital, luckily in front of the emergency room. She needed surgery, and during the time I took over making sure her bills were paid on time. Come to find out, she was embarrassed and racked up a whole lot of credit card debt, and she had a consolidation loan, etc. She really can't afford to make the payments. I'm trying to figure out who can help her and where we go from here. She's on Social Security and has about 19,000 in an IRA. IRA stands for Independent Retirement Account. It is also protected from debt collectors. They can't garnish your IRA, your 401k. Okay, that's protected. Can't be taken from you. Because of that reason, if you owe debt, you don't want to use your IRA or 401k, your personal retirement money, to pay that debt, because that personal retirement money, like the IRA is for you for a rainy day, for what you need for your needs. And it wouldn't make sense for you to pay that to a credit card where it's mostly going to pay interest when you don't need to pay the credit card in the first place. So we're going to call this guy back, and I'm going to tell him thanks for watching out for your mom, and I'm sorry that she got hurt and she's had these problems. But she doesn't need to be embarrassed, and she doesn't need to worry about paying the credit card debt of $30,000+. She doesn't worry about the debt consolidation loan. Her Social Security and her IRA is protected. It's available for her needs. She's going to be fine. She's going to be fine. So if you're listening to this because of a parent, you can always call and talk to us. Okay, and we'll go over this. Yes, I'm being sued, and I work part-time, maybe $800 per month plus my Social Security. Should I open a separate account for my part-time job? And yes, I have to file an answer by September 15th. Well, you don't have to file an answer if you owe the money. I've explained that. Now, if you don't owe the money and you want to just contest it, you can certainly do that, but you don't have to. Now, as far as your wages are concerned, first off, there's a federal law that protects a minimum of $217.50 net in wages. That's after taxes and withholdings are taken out per week from garnishment. Now, $217.50 times 2 weeks is $435, and it works out to be $940 a month. Okay, so if you're only getting $800 per month, that's less than $940. If they were to sue and try to garnish your wages, they wouldn't get anything because that's protected. Now, In some states, won't even allow a garnishment of wages. Texas, for example, South Carolina, some states protect more than $217.50 net per week wages. Okay, but no matter where you are, if you make less than that amount, which we talked about here, like $945 a month, $217.50 a week, no one could garnish the money. So no one can take it from your employer. You can keep working. Um, and you don't need to open up a separate account. Remember, if you get Social Security, if you got 1,000 in Social Security, that means 2,000 is protected. It doesn't matter what other monies are in that account. Okay? So you could have money from your wages, some money from a gift, something you sold. As long as you keep the balance less than twice the amount of what you get in Social Security each month, that's protected. See, when a bank gets rid of garnishment, they have to look at your account. And if they determine that it came from a federal source like Social Security, they times that number times two. In your case, 1,000 times two would be $2,000. But that's all they have to worry about. They protect that amount. They don't have to determine where the money came from. Or if there was money that went into that account from a different source, it doesn't matter. So when this rule went into effect in 2012, the government tried to make it easier on the banks. Banks said, well, this is going to be a headache. The government said, no, it's not. It says, all you need to do is find out where the money came from. Came from a federal source like Social Security, times that times two. You protect that amount. You don't have to worry about if the money in the account actually came from Social Security. It come from some other source. Could be in that account. So no, you're not going to have to worry, have separate accounts. Okay. You ease my mind. Well, that's what helps us here for. We're to ease your mind. If you have a question or concern or worry, you pick up the phone and you call. Okay, Helps was started in 2012. Before that, I filed tens of thousands of bankruptcies, started a real large bankruptcy firm, still going on, which is very successful. But it left Helps, started Helps in 2012 and left it completely in about 2014 to start Helps because a lot of seniors, they didn't need to file bankruptcy. They couldn't afford to file bankruptcy, but there was nowhere they could go to get help. And so, we don't represent people in court. We don't go to court we don't need to. We don't give legal advice. We give legal information. And because of that, we can represent seniors in all 50 states. So, we represent you as your attorney under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act in order to get debt collector communication. So you don't need to worry about this. This was context is from Ohio. And he says, I had a stroke in 2021 and lost my job. Now I have fair credit. Um, he's talking about problems with his house, with his furnace and air conditioning. The house needs a lot of repairs. I can't get any help. Got a problem with the shower and gutters problem. Please help me in any way or guide me in the right direction. Thank you. So we'd call this guy back and we'd talk to him about his house, how much he owes on it, what's it worth, whether it makes sense to keep it. If he has enough equity in it, let's say the house was had a lot of major disrepairs, but it was still worth quite a bit of money, and maybe he owed very little or nothing on it. He could look at what's called a reverse mortgage that would uh, pay off any existing loan he owes, and also give him a line of credit, or also could provide to pay to fix the house up, and so he could live in the home, not have to make a house payment. Could be a number of answers to this question, but that's what we'll talk to you about. Okay. And one of the things we're going to tell him is that if he has other debt, like credit cards or medical bills, he's not going to need to pay that debt. You stop using that, and you can use that maybe to help fix up the house. So the person context is from Indiana. I'm 60 years old and was sent home from the hospital to die. They said 6 months, but by the grace of God, I'm still here. I'm now on disability and have 22,000 in credit card debt and loans. I'm trying to work on one at a time, but I just can't do it anymore because of rent, medication, cost of living. Yeah, if we think we have problems, there's some. But see, she doesn't have a problem because we're going to call her back, this good person from Indiana, and we're going to tell her, uh, you don't need to pay the credit card debt anymore. You can stop paying it. And we can protect you from the collectors harassing you. You can use the money for your rent, your medication, and the cost of living for your needs. Even if these creditors were to sue you, you're not going to have to go to court. You don't need to worry about it. Now, you don't have to be dying for me to protect you in this manner. If you're getting Social Security or a pension or retirement income, we can help you. If you have debt you can't afford to pay, call us. 855-435-7787 number right there. Right there. Give us a call. I don't want you to worry. And the whole purpose of helps, if you ever are worried or ever do have a question, you can call us, no matter how often. Helps was designed so that we would represent you ongoing. Why is that? Well, because occasionally creditors will sell it to a new collection agency and you'll get a new collection notice. You need to get that to us. Or you might get sued a year, 2 or 3 years down the road, or maybe even longer. If you get sued, then you get us a copy of the lawsuit, first 3 or 4 pages. We're going to explain why you don't need to go to court, why you don't need to worry. We're going to send a letter to the attorney that sued you. That doesn't mean that if you enroll in helps, you're going to get sued. You may not. But if you do, you're not going to need to worry about it. And we're going to explain to you why. And again, if you're on debt settlement or debt management and you're never told that your income was protected, you weren't given the right information. What is the name on the form I need to change the ownership of my condo apartment to my 2 sons? I live in Maryland. Will they require paying a fee? I own my property. I make no mortgage payment. Um, well, maybe you're talking about a legal form that's called joint tenancy, a deed and joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. Uh, in most states, that's a deed where, for example, you would deed the property to yourself and then your 2 sons. So the three of you own it together. And it provides that if one of you die, like you pass away, Barbara, then the property would automatically go to your 2 sons. And if you did that before anyone sued you and got a judgment, then they would get the property. The only money since there's no money owed on the property, they would own it lock, stock, and barrel. And then they could sell it and divide the proceeds or do whatever they want. So it's called joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. We have an email available. We can send people about this. Okay. It's not available in every state, but um, I think it shouldn't be a problem in Maryland. And when we send a copy of that form, it tells you where it's available, where it isn't available. Okay. This person contacts us from Vermont. I saw your video on YouTube last night and wanted to know what I can do about the immense amount of credit card debt I have. I have been making payments on time to try to keep the cards in good standing, but it's getting difficult for me to handle these payments. After I make the monthly payments, I find myself having to use the available credit to pay for living expenses, and it's just a vicious circle. I'm wondering if it sense makes sense to stop paying the credit cards and just use the money I pay them to live. Yeah, you're right. You're right. If you've been listening to me, you've heard me use this example before. Some people we talk to, it's like they're digging a hole. And by digging a hole, they're using the credit, they're paying it off, and they're trying to throw it out of the hole. and they finally get to the point where they can't pay the credit anymore. It's like they throw the dirt to get out of the hole, but it doesn't reach the top and over the lip. It keeps coming down on top of them. No, you can stop digging the hole. You don't have to dig the hole. You can stop making the credit card payments sooner than this. If your income is Social Security, if it's protected, you can stop doing it. If you enroll in helps, you're going to give us the creditors you owe money to. We're going to send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone, and peace is going to come back to your life. You're going to have all that money available for your needs. You don't use it. You don't need to use it to pay the interest on the credit cards and mounting them up higher and higher and higher and higher. We're digging the debt. We're digging the hole lower and lower and lower until you can't throw it out anymore. Now, I always ask our clients and people that enroll, one of the things we say, we always ask our clients to share what helps does with others as appropriate. There's a lot of seniors that need this help, but they don't know about it. But a lot of our clients find out about helps from their friends. And you can make the difference in someone's life, because I talk to so many people and read so many messages saying, oh, I wish I would have learned about this sooner. Would have saved me so many headaches. Well, I'm glad you can find out when you do find out, but we always ask people to share what helps does with others. As far as I know, we're the only law from the nation that does this. We help people in all 50 states. A lot of people need this help. There's almost a concerted effort by debt collectors and creditors not to let seniors know that their income is protected. They don't tell them this stuff that you're hearing from me. They don't tell them how they can stop paying their debt and stop the creditors from bothering them. Instead, a lot of them are directed to debt management, which is fine if you could afford it. But almost half of seniors have incomes within 200% of the poverty line. And those are the seniors, that's the majority of the seniors that have significant debt. And I talk to seniors all the time that have been put in utter poverty, making payments to a debt management or debt settlement company to pay debt they simply can't afford to pay. And they're never told the very fact that their income is protected. Okay? But you know it. You're hearing it from me. So this person, and it's the first time I'm reading a lot of these. It says, not sure if you can help me, but anyway, here it goes. Okay. I'm widowed as of May 10th, 2019. I'm 75 years old and I live in my home. I have a mortgage and also have a second mortgage, which I can't afford to pay on it. For the first 10 years of this loan, I paid interest only, and back then that was a struggle. So she had what's called a home equity line of credit, which was interest only, and usually that goes for 10 years. Now I have to pay $500 to someone, which I can't afford. Why I'm paying it is because they sent me a letter from an attorney. If I don't pay on that, they will put my house on the market and sell my property on an auction. I just don't know what to do about this loan. Well, you can talk to us and we'll go over this with you. So you live in Los Angeles. You may have significant equity in the home, which means you could possibly get a reverse mortgage on the property. You know, I tell a lot of people that have second mortgages that it's uncommon. One nice thing about helps is we work with so many seniors. I've been doing this for so long. You know, I know what the law is, but then I know what happens in the real world. It's really uncommon for a second mortgage to foreclose on a home. Now, you say, why is that? Well, one thing is they would have to pay off the first mortgage. And a lot of these second mortgages aren't set up to do that. Let's say you owed 10 or 20,000 on a second mortgage and the first mortgage was $300,000. Well, if you're going to foreclose on that home, you're going to have to be able to pay off that $300,000, and you just don't do that. You're hoping that that loan you have out there, if it's not being paid, that lien sits there, and that eventually when the person passes on or when they go to sell the home, then the debt will get paid at that time. So it would be highly unusual, not impossible, but highly unusual for a second mortgage to foreclose on your home. Now, where could it be more likely? Well, maybe you paid your first mortgage off, or owe a very small amount on your first mortgage. Then it could make sense. Even then, it's not that common. But in that case, depending on your age, you could get a reverse mortgage that would pay off the mortgage and own the home free and clear, not have to make a payment. So I'm going to tell this person who said, not sure if you can help me, but anyway, here it goes, to call us and we'll go over this and we may have an answer to solve their problem. I'd be surprised if we don't, because we almost always do. Okay? Almost always do. And even if we didn't have a problem, I would know what to tell them. But I don't want to get into here. It gets too complicated. When you file 30 or 40,000 bankruptcy, you've been dealing with this for 4 decades, or 46 years, whatever it is. You learn a little bit of practical things. Okay. This person writes in, they say, I'm at the point of not being able to pay my bills. So they're in the bottom of the hole. They can't throw the dirt out anymore. I just can't do it anymore. I understand my Social Security can't be garnished, but I have to work to cover my bills. Can they garnish that? Well, I've already talked about that. If you live in Texas, they can't garnish your wages. A few other states are the same thing. Some states, every state protects a minimum of $217.50 net per week in wage, but a lot of states protect more than that. Some protects $400 a week, $600 a week. Depends on where you live. Talk to us. We'll go over this with you. If you have any question, you call our toll-free number. Doctor, I've got paralegals standing by that will be glad to talk to you. Don't want you to worry. Okay, well, here's a pretty long one. I'll try to cut to the quick on this one. Person contacts us from New York. I have charge-offs that have been sold to collection agencies, several agencies, in fact. So you owe a debt to a credit card company. At some point, they're going to charge it off. They're going to turn it over to a debt collection agency. And he says, am I wrong in thinking that double dipping is happening here? Yeah, you're wrong. The original creditor receives a tax break and the sale of the charge-off to the collection agency buys the debt and tries to collect this debt, keeps getting sold and over. No, there's no double dipping. It may seem that way, but it's not the way it works. So if an original creditor charges off the debt, they claim that on their taxes. If they later get money from collecting that debt or someone else pays the money for collecting the debt, then they report that as income. So it's not double dipping. But it's not the first time I've been asked that question. Said, I've never talked to any collection agent. I've never communicated in any way. I know if I do, it restarts the time limit on my debt. No, you're wrong on that. You're talking about a statute of limitations for you to be sued. It doesn't matter if you talk to the collection agency. Normally it's from when the debt was incurred or when you last made a payment. So if you made a payment 5 years ago and you've been talking to creditors ever since then and never made another payment, and the statute of limitation is 6 years, next year the statute of limitation will run and they can't legally sue you. It's not from when you talk, it's from when you last made a payment. Then they go into details on other debt. Stuff I don't need to read to you. We talked about working. He drives a school bus part-time. That's a lot, and he did. I mean, I had 4 or 5 paragraphs in there I could have read. That's a lot. There's more, but wow. Yeah, that's right. I would like the collection calls to stop. Enrollment helps. We'll stop them. And I want the collection reporting off my credit report. So we have a program that 7 steps to a 720 credit score where you can get your credit back if you want to. If you can give me guidance, I would be be ever so grateful. Thank you for taking time to read my diatribe. I wouldn't call it a diatribe. That's your story, and it's important. Okay, so you can send us a diatribe anytime you want if you need to, and we'll read them. And I read all of this earlier. Um, yeah, 7 steps to a 720 credit score. Phil Tyrone um, has that company, and after you've been part of helps for 90 days, you can enroll for free. It doesn't cost you anything. You can actually rebuild your credit with helps, and it doesn't involve paying your old debt. Your credit is based on your recent credit history, and lawsuits and judgments don't appear on your credit report, so you can rebuild your credit. Roswell says, I tried to cancel my Comcast account. I don't have a record of it, and they just keep charging me. You know, it's easy with artificial intelligence and the computer. They put it on automatic, send you a bill. I've given up trying to talk to them. Yeah, doesn't do any good, does it? Should I just have help send them a cease and desist? Yeah, but even if they send you a bill, they're an original creditor. Don't worry about it. They can't do anything to you. They can't collect from you. They never give you the same answer twice. Sure, they the person you talk to probably doesn't live in America. I'm sorry I said that. Okay. I will say this. I talk to people that are collecting debt or that obviously are from overseas. By and large, they're really good. They really try hard. Bless their hearts. They're trying to make a living for their families. I don't have any problem with it at all. It can get frustrating occasionally, but I think the vast majority of the time they do pretty darn good. I mean, it's a second language for them, a lot of them. Angel asks, what if I pass and I have a lien on my home? What will my children need to do? I own my home. Well, we talk about that a lot. If you had your kids' names to the home before someone had a judgment, uh, see, there wouldn't be a lien on your home. We're talking about, okay, first off, if there's a mortgage lien, that's different. If you die and you have a mortgage lien, that needs to be paid. But let's say you had a mortgage lien and you're worried about debt that you owe. If you had added your children's name to the home in most states and you owned it jointly with survivorship rights, that means when you pass away, the property would automatically go to the kids. And all they'd have to worry about is a mortgage that you owe. Any other debt they wouldn't need to worry about. You can call and talk to us. We'll go over that with you and about your other issues. Yeah. Okay. So this person writes in, they say, I am someone's wife. We talked a while back. My husband has stage 4 lung cancer. If we did this for his debts, what would happen if he passed? Do I have to pay them? Anyways, is this route a good option for him? You're not going to have to pay his debts when he passes. Yeah, it'd be a good option for him and you both. You're not going to have to worry. See, um, if it's credit card debt, it's only in his name, and then you own your assets together. When he dies, they're your assets. And I'm assuming that you're seniors and you're on Social Security, your income is protected. The creditors aren't going to come after you. Even if you own the joint debt jointly, you're not going to have to worry about it. So yeah, we'll be glad to go over this. When you call helps, you're going to call us. We're going to go over your situation. We're going to talk to you about what your options are. Person contacts us from Texas. They say, I'm getting sued, but I'm disabled and can't afford to pay back the debt. Don't need to worry. If you don't want to, you're not going to need to go to court. If you don't want to have to deal with it, you can enroll in helps. We'll send a letter to the attorney who sued you, let them know that your income is protected. Send a letter to your other creditors so they don't bother you. No, that's what we do. You can look at our videos about what we do or call us on the phone. So this person contacts us from Arizona. I just heard about your organization on YouTube, and I would like some help on my credit cards, which I can no longer pay. I'm only able to work part-time and not even every day. I signed up with this company that helps negotiate a lower amount that is owed on the credit cards, and then they charge a fee, and I'm finding out that between what I have to pay and back in the fee, I'm paying the full amount of what I owe. And were you ever told that you didn't need to pay them anything and that your income was protected? No. I also have medical bills because of my poor health. We can include those too. And the hospitals want me to pay a percentage of the total bill. Don't need to worry about it. Don't need to worry about it. This is apparently something that Blue Cross Blue Shield and Medicare has done to seniors. I'm so overwhelmed with all this. I feel like my health is getting worse. It's put a strain on my marriage, and I'm just tired. Please help me if you can. Bless your heart. Yeah, we can help you. If this is you, if it's put a strain on your marriage, this debt, and you're worried and you're just tired, we can help you. That's what, oh, where is it here? That's what HELP stands for. It stands for HELP, stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors. HELPS. We represent you to stop the creditors from calling you. You don't have to go to court. We're going to explain to you why your income is protected, why you don't need to pay the debt. Yeah, I want you to call us. Don't sit there and be, you know, you can get help. April says, my son stopped paying for a car I co-signed on. I'm getting 4 to 5 calls a day and I don't answer. Can you send cease and letters for just me so he gets the calls? I'm a client of yours. Yeah, I'm not. Have they repossessed the car? You can call and talk to us. See, normally what happens if he doesn't make a car payment, he's behind. Then they're going to repossess the car, and then when they repossess the car, they're going to sell it, and then you're going to get a letter showing what you owe, and that's called a deficiency notice. And then at that point, we send a letter out to the lender who you owe the money to, saying them not to call you anymore. But if it's just started getting behind and they're trying to find out about the payment, we could send them a letter, but they still might call you. They may not even know where your son's name and address is or where the car is. Call and talk to us. We'll go over it with you, April. I don't have control over their phone. Sometimes creditors will call illegally and they're not allowed to do it. But this works 99% of the time. We're coming down near the end of another beautiful Monday. So this person, I think this is a note from one of our paralegals. Andy bought a car in 2004. He got sick. He went on disability. Apparently, he had insurance that paid for the car payment for a couple of years. For the last couple thousand, he missed a monthly doctor's appointment, so they dropped his loan for some reason. And they repossessed the car and sold it. 18 years later, we buy a house. He's still disabled and still receiving disability. Apparently, he did a writ of execution. We didn't even know it existed. Apparently, they sued and had a judgment. We bought the house and it never showed up. Now the 2,000 has turned into $68,000. and he was hospitalized the day of the hearing, and even with power of attorney forms, the lawyer refused to speak to me. So it's a judgment that we might lose this house we just bought, our first home. You call and talk to us, and we'll go over this. Too complicated to go over here. We need to ask a few questions. So to find out how we help you, we have you call helps. And then I have a computer screen, and we ask questions like where you live, if you're married, if you're single, what's your source of income, how'd you find out about helps, are you buying a home or are you renting, are you buying a car, do you own a car, has anyone sued you, do you owe any taxes, do you owe any student loans, what you owe approximately in credit card debt. Then we're going to read you what we do, and if you want our help, we can enroll you right over the phone. You become a Helps member immediately. Payment won't begin till 30 or 60 days down the road. What's the payment? The most a person would be charged would be $40 for 24 months, $20 for 24 months free thereafter. It could be $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months free thereafter, or $20 for 24 months, $10 for 24 months free thereafter, depending on your household income. 1 out of 7 of our clients approximately gets our help for free, maybe even more than that. We don't turn anyone away that needs the help we provide. So this person contacts us from, it looks like Maine. Mom fell. I'm calling on behalf of my mom. She fell and broke her hip and wrist. Oh, this is the same one I talked about earlier. I'll finish up with this. Do you have to pay back the credit union if your car was repossessed? No. If you're on Social Security or a pension and you owe money to a lender such as a credit union, and they take the car and they sell it, and you owe what's called a deficiency, the amount of the loan less what they sold it for, that's the difference. It's called a deficiency. If your income is Social Security pension, it's protected. You don't have to pay the debt. And we can stop the credit union from harassing you. You're going to be fine. Okay. So it looks like it's been an hour, almost an hour. My voice is starting to crack up, so I'm gonna call it quits for now. That's what we want to do. We want you to have a good night's sleep and not worry about this. Okay. And if you have any questions, be sure and call us. Where's the number? Somewhere down there. Right there. Give us a call. 855-435-7787. And I'll talk to you tomorrow at the same time. You have a wonderful day.